Town of Dayton, December 19th, Planning Board meeting. Reminder that the meeting is video and audio recorded for broadcast and posterity. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. And the first item on the agenda is 0 Maynard Lane.
Mr. Chairman?
Evening.
Good evening. I don't believe Mr. Pereira is here yet.
Okay, we can hold off.
Could you hold off?
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you.
As a housekeeping matter, I am not back here until January 3rd, I believe is a Thursday. So you can either have a meeting without me or wait until the next regularly scheduled meeting. I don't know if we have to decide now, but you may want to decide now.
What about the 9th?
Then have one the 9th and then also the 16th?
Why don't we just have one on the 16th, because I'm gonna be away on the 2nd too.
Well then,
And I don't wanna come the second, so that's.
Right. I don't think there's much on the agenda.
We don't
Is
have
there?
anything.
So why don't we just have one meeting on the 16th?
I think
Yeah, if it has to be a long meeting, I mean,
so be it.
Yeah.
Right now, for the 16th, the only thing we have is that, review of that solar for ISM, Solar Dayton 3, who
It's the
came
one
before
out in
us
the woods?
last, yeah.
Okay, yeah, right.
That's the only thing that we have so far,
There'll be more.
I'm sure.
It just won't be on the 2nd.
Just, yeah, won't be on the 2nd. So, just one meeting for January?
Yes.
Okay.
Moving on, I don't think we need to have a time frame for approving the meeting minutes for December 5th. Would anyone like to make the motion?
Move to approve the minutes, meeting minutes of December 5th, 2018.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now we're just waiting for Mr. Ferrer.
Right there.
Oh,
How are you?
good evening.
It's
Step right up.
Christmas time.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I have Sue Ann here, with the board. You know Sue Ann? Yes.
Swain Santos, Insight Engineering. I have some plans. I have small copies and large copies for the board. I don't know what. This is just a sketch plan. It's nothing official. So I have 8.5 by 11, or 11 by 17 rather, and I have the large.
Say small enough.
Because it's easy to manage.
Thank you, sir.
All in fine, we're good.
Going, I got one more small and one large.
Yeah.
We'll share. He wants to be close to me, so.
That's it.
And I just pass it on that. Good stuff there. Okay. To give the board a little bit of background on the property. It's located off of Maynard Lane, which is a subdivision coming off of North Street, which is located in the north end of town. The property contains 17.5 acres. There's no jurisdictional records. And we have perk tests on the site that were done back in 2004. Going all the way back to 2005, Maynard Lane was part of a subdivision called Northwoods. And we had, I apologize for this, it's sort of pieced together. A subdivision plan was submitted to the planning board at that time, creating a roadway, Maynard Lane, which went from North Street, so this is the Dayton, North Street here, came through and came up to the Dayton Rehoboth line, and then proceeded down into Rehoboth, where it came out on Francis Street. That was the proposal back in 2005. And because they were going through two different towns, and I think there were two separate applications, at the time, the planning board agreed to phase it in. And at approximately 1,000 feet, which is in this area here on Maida Drive, we put in a temporary cul-de-sac. And it was approved for 6 lots with 1,000 feet, with the intent that, when we get the permit from Rehoboth, or when the client did at that time, we would come through and do the connections.
So you're saying that this at one point was all approved by the Town of Dayton Planning Board?
No, we stopped and I guess at one point, this
Okay.
was the plan that was submitted, but because we were going between the two towns.
Right, gotcha.
And Rehoboth had extensive wetlands, and we needed a permit from state, local, and federal, because we had 5,000 square feet of wetlands. We were sort of waiting for that permitting. That was all environmentally permitted, so they did get all of their permits for that in Rehoboth. But in the interim, things happened, things fell through, and only those 6 lots were built. Mr. Pereira has purchased the property, which is this portion. And it's about the 17 acres that I spoke of. And he's looking at possibly going back to the old, that's connecting it through to Francis Street, and other options using the Town of Dayton zoning regulations. So with that, I believe he came in back in July. And presented a concept here. Which was a cul-de-sac off of the existing cul-de-sac. So the existing cul-de-sac is approximately 1,000 feet in length. That's what was agreed to at the time, and ends here. And his proposal was to come through and extend it out to a little over, for a total length of 2,000 feet. And after that, he had proposed 12 smaller lots to proceed with a conservation subdivision, providing open space. After discussion with you, he came back to us and asked us to provide a revised plan. And the one that you're looking at is the revised plan, mostly because of the cul-de-sac situation, I believe. So, under the revised plan that we showed you today, and again, this is just a concept and a sketch, and your conservation regulations, we'll be looking to come through and actually put it in a circular type roadway with the same 12 lots and open space located in this area and then around the back. The total area being the 17.4 acres, with the 2 open space areas that are shown, would bring us a little under 30%, approximately 29% in open space that we'd be looking at. Just at this point, rather than going through and creating a through street to Rehoboth, it's just logistically changes a lot of neighborhoods when you do something like that. So this is just keeping it within the Town of Dayton, smaller scale. And we figured we'd come before the board and just get some feedback from you.
My initial feedback, trying to remember what we talked about in July, is that a cul-de-sac subdivision is limited to 600 feet.
Mm-hmm.
The cul-de-sac that exists is how many feet, did you say?
1,000.
1,000. And you're asking to go another 1,000?
So the 1,000 ends here.
Okay.
So then the total, if you go, it'd be an additional 450 to this point here.
Right.
And then you would have the circular
Right.
portion of it.
This was the previous proposal. That would just be an extension of the cul-de-sac.
Right.
And then I think some of the board members mentioned they'd rather see a loop or something like that. So that's why we came back with this one.
Yeah, we did discuss a loop, but we also discussed that it still goes way beyond what our typical subdivision, one entry subdivision allows. So typically a one entry subdivision is about 600 feet, which usually allows 5 developable lots and another lot for drainage. So what you have is 12 lots on a piece of land, again, that's going 1,000-foot one-entry subdivision, creating a 1,400 or so square foot single-entry subdivision. So that seems like a hurdle that is pretty daunting. We've gotten out of the habit of granting subdivisions with waivers over 600 feet unless there's a demonstrable benefit to the town. And I guess that's something that you can start to demonstrate to us.
Okay, I think what, just in doing some research on the subdivisions that have been approved in the town, this is one, I think that was done recently.
Yes, that is a conservation subdivision, and they gave us 50-some-odd
Acres.
of
Yeah.
land in exchange. And the benefit to that, the original subdivision was a through road to the north road up there, I forget the name of it.
Old Wellington?
Old Wellington, and they started with 54 lots, and they went down to 26 lots. So the benefit there was that we ended up with half as many lots because they were no longer having a throughway. And that's why that single entry was allowed. And in fact, where Tommy's Way enters, it's a boulevard entrance, so so it gives more, the safety issue that spawned all these 600 feet maximums is that now a fire truck can, if one side is blocked off, a fire truck can go in through the other. Now, I don't know if something similar would be more likely to pass this board, but it's something to consider. And again, I'm just speaking for myself. I am the chairman of the board, so I guess I carry some weight, but as I said, unless there's a demonstrable benefit, you have an uphill climb. Any other comments?
I don't know, I can't recall if we ever saw the conventional subdivision that there could be 12 houses fit.
I have that.
Oh, we had that?
Yeah.
Okay, we did see it, Joe.
Yeah, we did. This is it right here.
Okay,
We did see that, but that's
Yeah,
gonna
there's
turn
a-
out to be 2,000 feet.
yeah.
No, that's the,
That's the.
It could be done with waivers.
The other question I have for you is, we have
Doesn't it?
a 35,000 square foot lot sizes, and
Conservation.
this would be a conservation subdivision.
In order to put green space and trails through all around it, 30% of land would be green space and trails.
But even then, this, as a concept, doesn't show any drainage parcels. So 12 lots of a conventional subdivision, buildable, I don't know about that even.
oh, we have some lots that are definitely oversized, so.
So, again, I don't know what direction you wanna go in, but I believe that either one is requiring waivers that I personally don't like granting.
You gonna have sidewalks on both sides of the streets?
We haven't actually gotten to that point yet.
I'm a sidewalk guy.
Right. Okay, I mean, if you have any other comments, you're happy to share with me this time?
I mean, it's better than the other plan,
Yeah, it's definitely better.
but we get into granting, again, extensions on
On
things that we
extensions.
don't wanna get back into that habit that preceded us.
Would we need to have a public hearing to let all the other residents?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
This
Yeah.
is just an
This is-
informal
this
discussion.
is very informal.
And no votes are taken, only opinions are given. So you can have any opinion you want and change that opinion when it comes time to vote on something that actually covers a lot of design work that isn't here yet. As you said, there's sidewalks to consider, drainage parcels to consider, as well as all the different details that
Right.
go into a subdivision.
We're just, at this point, just so we're interpreting your regulations as, we see them written and looking at, precedents, that's just where we're at. If we're doing
Sure.
it correctly or if we're just.
No, there's nothing that you're doing incorrectly other than other than at some point, if you decide to go for a conservation subdivision, the benchmark is that you can have the same amount of lots as in a conventional subdivision. And in comparison, there was a developer that came in that showed 48 lots on a parcel. Well, that didn't take into consideration that some of the lots were in the national grid's easement, some of the lots were in vernal pools, some of the lots, and so we discussed it down to 42 lots, but there was still a major amount of disagreement for whether they could actually get 42 lots. And our contention, or at least my contention, I believe it was the whole board's contention, was without the detail that we required, they couldn't prove those 42 lots, so they were denied to be able to apply for a conservation subdivision, and then they withdrew entirely. So, for you to tell us that 12 lots can fit into here, it will need, I don't know if there's wetlands, I have no idea.
No, see, the benefit of that is back in, when the original subdivision was done, you can see the wetland line has been flagged. So on this portion, there are no wetlands.
Okay.
So, we're not in the floodplain, we have test pits on pretty much all the lots.
Right.
Because at that time, and for the preliminary plan, this definitive plan rather,
Mhm.
we had to, perk every lot before
Right.
we came in, so, under the old regulations. So, all that's been done.
And you say it's 17 acres?
Yep,
Boy, you could put a lot of solar panels on that.
No, you can't. I wish I could, because that's what
Really?
you guys suggested. And I did meet with someone who's very, very good in the industry, and he went up there and actually talked to the neighbor next door too, and we would have combined lots, and
Yeah.
they don't have the capacity to take the solar.
Really?
I would have loved to put solar up there.
We have
believe me. Yeah, they don't have the
We have
capacity,
a-
and they don't have the three-phase around there at all.
They don't have three-phase up there?
No.
Really? Huh. Interesting.
It would have been an easy answer.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it is the answer. I don't know if it gives you the return on your investment that.
Oh, yeah, it would have.
Yeah.
It would have been better than doing any of this, quite honestly, but it's
Yeah.
not feasible. So at the end of the day, I mean, I'm gonna do something with the land, right? I didn't buy it to do nothing.
Of course.
So I'm looking for comments or suggestions from the board. I know it had been approved for 2 lots, 2 estate lots before I bought it. I actually bought 2 individual parcels. Do you ever approve anything that's not a subdivision that would be a shared driveway
We
with
have.
more than 2 lots?
We have retreat lots. So this is, what is this length right here?
The width, I don't
The
know.
width.
Do you know?
I don't know. What,
I,
a retreat lot
I think this is 300 feet this way. I don't know how wide it is that way, so my guess would be 5 or 6.
you
I'm guessing,
probably
I don't
could
know.
only get 2 retreat lots into this.
Yeah, they're gonna
Say
be
they're
8 acre
gonna be
lots.
8 acre
Eight
lots.
of- Yeah, so
You have to be-
that's
You
what it
could
was.
also
8
get
acre
a-
lots.
you could
Then you
also
could
get a
potentially
single
do-
family in there.
You potentially could do
we could do.
3 or 4 and 1, I don't know, you'd have to look at our bylaws.
Yeah.
I don't know that if this road is already 450 feet off 1,000 feet, I don't think that fits as far as retreat lots. If it was off of, if you had frontage on an existing street,
Yeah, so-
and you don't, then you would be able to create retreat lots and Form A lots.
Mm.
Both of them are Form
You
A
got-
lots essentially, off of the street frontage.
You could put a Form A retreat, a Form A retreat.
But those, still the street's not there, is the
Yeah,
problem.
it's not there.
There's no frontage.
There's
Oh,
just-
that's
Well,
right,
the
no
cul-de-sac,
street.
is a cul-de-sac? I
Yeah.
don't know how much frontage on, is
There
there any?
isn't, there is no
No,
frontage on the cul-de-sac because it was a, it
Those
was
are
a
used for
temporary,
lots.
it was temporary under the first phase of this. So, that's,
So again, the process is first you determine what you realistically could do in a conventional subdivision. And then you defend your position to us, and then we agree or disagree. There'll be some discussion and consulting with our consulting engineers who will guide us through the process to show that, well, if it's all dry, that helps. The fire chief will weigh in, several other boards will weigh in. And then, once we concur with the number of lots, then we discuss more details. And again, the detail that is most difficult to overcome is the length of the road.
Mhm.
And this is all showing 1 acre lots and 1 1 1/3 acre lots and 1 1/4 acre lots.
Yeah, the original,
Is there water out there?
no.
Well, there you go, but you can still do possibly more than what is,
Mhm.
if you do a throughway, but I have no idea what that entails. I just know that when you get 2 towns involved, it can be a pretty lengthy process, and when you throw in the Conservation Commission and then the DEP and whoever else,
Mhm.
although I think the federal rules have been relaxed, I don't think that really,
Yeah.
really helps you in Massachusetts very much.
No.
And I don't know if Rehoboth has its own
They do, and
conservation
as far as
bylaw.
the Rehoboth side of it, the Conservation Commission approved it in Rehoboth. And, we did get a permit from the Army Corps of Engineers at that time, and they have been renewed, I believe, that's what I've been told, through the years, so those are still in fact.
So you may wanna look at that, although
Mm.
that becomes a much longer road.
Mm.
And there would be neighborhood opposition either way, but those folks are probably more opposed to a throughway.
Exactly, see, when you create that,
But on
you
the other
actually
hand,
change
The,
the way it is.
the town, for safety reasons, might be more, like the idea, the fire chief may like the idea of being able to take a shortcut to get to wherever,
Right,
but
that's
I
right.
don't know, I mean, I'm just
How much fun
spitballing
is
here.
your own on a cul-de-sac? Any idea?
It's 80 feet.
80 feet.
Just enough to get back here, basically.
Just enough for 2 retreat lots.
So did I hear right, you said that there was a, 2 estate lots on the original plan?
No, on the original plan, it ended with the discernible easement, so it was a temporary easement that was created, cul-de-sac, and then the decision was to stop it at 1,000 feet, the length of the roadway. So it's just, Maynard Lane is just 40 feet, no cul-de-sac. There's nothing there for a turnaround. There's a temporary turnaround, but after a certain amount of time or a certain event happens, then it goes away, that easement. So you can't take frontage off that because it's not part of the roadway.
Yeah, at one point, I think, it was a Mechanics Bank, I bought one of the lots from Mechanics Bank, and I bought the other lot from someone who bought the lot from Mechanics Bank. So Mechanics had it 2 8-acre lots at one point, after all this fell apart. It was 2.
Is there any plans of that was approved?
By the planning board, yes.
No.
For the 2.
I wasn't part of that, I just bought it later.
Yeah, I found that in, I guess it was part of, this was even smaller, sorry, part of the Northwood Estates that came
Yeah,
before the
2
planning
acre
board for the
lots.
2.
So I don't know if there's an expiration date on those, but those would both be legal as retreat lots
Retreat
by
lot.
our current bylaw.
Right.
I don't know how they did it during that bylaw, maybe they just
They asked for a waiver on frontage.
waivers, now you don't
And that's
need
something
it.
you don't wanna pursue?
It doesn't make financial sense, so that, and I'm kinda new at this, I was on a planning board at Somerset a long time ago, and there's nothing like the rules are now. So forgive my ignorance, but, if I sold it to someone who came in with a 40B plan, what would they have to prove, and what are the requirements there?
Well, the 40B plan would be, it's 17 acres. They could basically they could apply for a 200-unit apartment building. Would they get it? I don't know. Would it be pared down to 100 units? Would it be something that no one would wanna rent, so why would they build it in the first place? I don't know, but as far as single-family homes, the rules don't apply as far as the length of roads and the ability they do to a certain extent, but with a 40B, it's whatever you can work out with the zoning board of appeals.
Like Dayton Woods, is that?
Yeah, and it could be common land with condominiumized, single-family duplexes and single-family homes, duplexes, triplexes. It could be fourplexes, it could be triple deckers like in Southie, if that's what you thought would work, but it is, realistically, it's whatever you.
The neighbors wouldn't like it, I can assure you.
No,
that.
anyway, any 40B that you.
No, I'm just trying to weigh the options and see
Yeah,
what's out there.
any
Yeah.
40B that
Well,
you do is
sure.
going to be contentious. Would it be more contentious than this process? Maybe a little bit more if you're gonna go for 100 units, a lot more. But if you're going for.
But this road would still apply to that, because it is 1,000 feet.
Yeah, but it only applies if a developer has a 40B plan and the state, the DHCD says it's a feasible plan, then I don't believe that if everything else is shown to be viable, I don't think that the ZBA can deny it because of the length of the road. They could, but they might lose on appeal. Of course, we might lose on appeal, I don't know. There's just a lot of ifs and buts. So I don't, you might wanna talk to an attorney that is savvy about land use as far as the 40B, because, this board doesn't deal with 40Bs. I've been involved in it professionally here and there, but, so I don't know the rules as well as I would if I were on if I was on the ZBA, for instance. They actually have, I believe they have a 40B committee.
They have a committee.
Retreat loans.
So it doesn't go to the planning board at all, 40Bs?
No, it goes before the zoning board of appeals, but the town does have a 40B committee that you may wanna talk to them. Or again, you may wanna talk to an attorney
No, they
that
probably
specializes
weren't.
in
It
land
was
use and
just a-
40Bs.
No, it's been
Thank you
recorded.
very much.
You're welcome.
Or is that further down there?
Any more questions?
The ZBA's in that building over there, the old town hall.
Is it? All right.
That's where they are.
Thanks, Woody.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good holiday.
Thank you.
as
too.
well.
Thank you.
Hopefully he gets close.
GPS, that thing is 38 right now.
Yeah, and then he hits the 495-24 intersection, and that was the end of that map.
Oh, really?
I'm guessing. I don't know where he's coming from, but if he's coming from 495 and he's going south.
24.
24? Yeah. That's a lot. Yeah, so we're not.
See, that's not the sewer situation.
How you doing?
We're gonna take a 40B when we could approve 12 lots.
Oh, yeah, buddy. What do you want? No, we're just trying to,
That's gonna-
so we're gonna do some land. Oh, yeah, sir.
That was the weakness. That wasn't a big block.
Came from the kids.
I don't believe that.
Yeah, we'd have to look it up.
Enjoy it.
Yeah, I thought I saw his truck somewhere.
no.
I was hoping it was him. I expected him in a minute.
We just have to be something on the registry of deeds. In fact, there'd be something in our GIS.
He wants to start setting up an account.
Should show separate lots, separate, essentially unbuildable lots. Except for the fact that now they are buildable because of the, excuse me, because
Actually,
of
we can go
the,
ahead and I'll just move him down here since.
bylaw.
So sick of it. This
So we probably should wait for our attorney to show up. He's running late, because the million-dollar question needs to be discussed before anything else, I
We're
believe.
presenting a revised plan that puts the access solely in on our property
Oh,
to avoid the issue, so,
and that is as of right now?
yes.
Okay, well then, let's open the continued public hearing for PGA Solar, 0 Brook Street, on map 16, lot 28. And you've been before the Concom
We have.
Yes, we received approval 2 weeks ago.
for the new entry?
For the prior plan, part of that condition is to come back with this change. The change shouldn't really, we believe that should be a matter of one meeting
With them?
with them, yes.
Okay.
So, just to, sort of, get back to the access issue, is to avoid the access issue, which, if the road has been discontinued, which there was a new vote that was provided to us in 1975 vote, the year after. It appears that the selectman, Mr. Santos, made a motion in 74 to discontinue it for maintenance under 32, and then the commissioner's office didn't vote on it, kicked it back to the town, and then they voted the next year to discontinue it under 21, which is a full discontinuance, which means both abutters own to the center of the former road. So we've moved it to avoid that little area that we were going onto their half of the road, to avoid the entire issue. So I turn it over to Mr. King.
Sure. Good evening, Christopher King with Atlantic Design Engineers. So as Attorney Pacella pointed out, due to the new finding, due to the 1975 vote, the old road, if you remember, was roughly located in this area, and again extended across the half of the Beausoleil's half of the Brook Street extension. So all I did is I pulled it down and then aligned it more in line with Pine Street and moved, it's still a three-sided open bottom box culvert per the stream crossing standards, what conservation likes to see, and it was just a matter of shifting it down, excuse me, east, if you will. It's the same road geometry, the same turning radii that's provided throughout the site, so from a fire, turning, and access standpoint, you know, that's not an issue. The stormwater basin, I needed to just shift it to the south, less than 10 feet roughly. It's still the same size, it still catches the same area, so from a stormwater standpoint, there aren't any changes in that respect either. Once you pull it down, I was able to basically extend the existing tree line a little bit further south, just to kind of bring this finger of existing woods to remain. We're bringing down the reforestation effort and also the double row of screening, just to make sure we're pulling everything down and increasing it as much as we can for the Beausoleils who are right across the Brook Street extension. I mean, that's pretty much it. It's a pretty, you know, fairly minor change, if you will. It was just more shifting the road down so that all of our work is either located on our property, or in accordance with the latest interpretation by the attorney.
Has GZA been able to review this?
I just finished it, basically. We got the interpretation a little late today, the final. And so I haven't had an opportunity to send it off to Peter. But in dealing with him throughout this review, you know, I'm confident that it meets the intent of what he's already seen. And so it would just be a formality to make sure he has a chance to see the revised plans. But again, the stormwater is consistent. You know, any kind of issue he had previously brought up, whether it be screening or, you know, fire department, you know, proper access and egress, you know, all that's consistent what was previously presented.
Here is our attorney, stuck in traffic. Thank you for coming.
I apologize for my tardiness.
It's okay.
Apparently, this is the busiest travel day of the Christmas season, and I just crawled down 128 at 8 miles an hour, so.
So just to apprise you of where we're at, the applicants have moved their access per your opinions. So I guess there's no reason for you to defend your opinion because they now agree with it.
Thanks for coming.
Sir?
would like to hear his opinion on, since we are there, we don't,
Well,
what the opinion
well, the
is.
opinion is that the access that was encroaching upon your half of the road,
We didn't even know we had half of them.
well, that's the half of the road is yours, according to the law, which you've been probably maintaining both halves.
Yep.
So you can thank them for, for maintaining your piece of land.
What's the width of the road?
Of the discontinued
Yes.
road?
Yes.
That, the town engineer may be able
What
to.
was the question?
What was the width? What is the width of that road?
Usually it's around 40 feet.
According to their map, it's about 50 feet.
It's about right.
Does that sound right?
Yeah.
So we'll.
But the road does not exist anymore.
Right, the same
The
lot
road
lines.
doesn't.
It's been discontinued, so, under the law, when a town discontinues a way, the underlying land reverts to the butters, to the center line of the roadway.
So can anyone ever build a road on it?
No.
No.
And we promise we won't tell the assessor.
Sit right behind the boat.
Believe me, I paid for that.
Too late.
Yeah. That's how we know.
Oh, that's a good one.
Why wasn't that recorded anywhere, or what, we weren't
It's,
notified of that?
it's not a requirement of the law. When the town voted to discontinue, it was on the town meeting warrant in 1975. So that would have been considered public notice of the discontinuance. It was published in the annual report.
Yet the maps still show it though, the maps that anyone has in
Still
town
show that road.
still show it as a road.
So up until we began this process, we all assumed that that was a paper road,
Right,
but it isn't.
right.
You can use your eraser on the paper because it doesn't exist anymore.
So are you allowed to put anything like on it, like a fence or, like, on your half?
Yes, because the current state of the law in Massachusetts is that when a town discontinues a road and the underlying land reverts to the abutters, they own that land.
So you can put anything on it that you, like a
And,
trees or?
and there's no easement, there's no remaining easement for travel,
There is not.
for any abutter along the road.
So people are back and not allowed to?
Yeah, so
Well,
that
your-
woman that.
I thought your
that-
letter, I thought your letter said unless somebody, if that's the only way into it, there is, you are allowed to pass through to get to it.
That's correct. If that's the only, only access, it's, what is known in the law as a prescriptive easement.
Right. So you
Which,
would have
which
that.
will allow,
Walking access?
Right.
So there's a lot west of this, and the woman who owns it, or is the trustee for it, came in.
That's me.
Oh, okay. I'm very bad with
That's
faces.
okay.
So, can she improve this easement to access her land, or can she only walk on it as it exists now?
I don't know.
It would seem it can't be both ways. You
Yeah.
can't own half of it, but then she can pave half of that half.
No, no, yeah.
I'm just saying, I'm
I'm
not
just
saying,
to
She could
Right.
alter it.
I'm not
I
saying
think
that you
she-
want to,
She
but.
could clear the woods, she could clear the wooded areas so that she could walk by, that's what my opinion is, that
Yeah.
she would be able to clear what's in front of her property, all the trees that are falling and things
Yeah.
like that.
But isn't,
Which would allow access.
isn't that why we call it locked land?
Landlocked, yeah.
I
My
think-
concern
As far
was
as
they
I'm
were gonna
concerned,
block
that-
it off.
it's locked land.
I assumed we had
Can't get
the
access
right
to
to
it by
access
helicopter.
by walking, I'm not trying to put in a road. But my concern initially was that it was going to be blocked off and I would be blocked legal access to walk up to it. But your letter said that we do have that right.
If the land doesn't otherwise abut a public way,
Right,
then you do have an easement back out to Williams Street, Williams
Pine
Avenue,
or
Pine
Brook.
Street, and Pine and Brook.
Pine and Brook.
So, but then he couldn't put a fence up.
But we've always allowed access to anybody.
Yeah, I'm just for,
Right,
for
but
not
for
that they want to,
argument's
but
sake, like
as a legal matter, could they
Right.
put a fence up, and would she have a claim to
Well, I
Climb the
mean,
fence.
climb the fence?
As long as I gave her a gate to go through.
yeah, I
there
mean,
you go.
I think the best way for any of the butters to handle this would be to get together and craft an easement to be recorded.
Right.
No, I understand, but,
Oh, the easement to be.
but if you,
So I could record an
There is
that
no
easement?
easement.
well, no, if you all sat down and agreed on it,
On a prescriptive easement, you're
And-
gonna
and then
continually drive it
you could,
with no objection from the neighbors.
Can we,
uh,
what did you say?
What was
I
that?
tried to
I said, I believe on a
Plot thickness.
prescriptive easement,
Alan Bosa, like,
you have to have continually utilize that road
we've never
In
tried to
order
prevent
to-
that.
for
yeah,
so many
it's
years
not an easy area.
without objection from any owners, before you can, but to walk up to get to your property, I guess would be okay.
Yeah, but that was a continuance of Brook Street all the way to Williams, right?
Right.
Mhm.
Up until
So,
1975.
Does that right away cross your property as well?
So, it's my understanding that Audrey Lane was there first, and then people have bought the lots along the side of Audrey Lane. In 1975, I guess they never gave consideration to, okay, we'll tell the abutters they actually own to the middle of the road, and it's still shown as
Every
not
property,
part of our property,
every
I should
property
say.
along that road owns to the middle now,
Right,
period.
Yep, that's
With
the
no
way I
access.
interpret that too.
Mhm.
with no access,
Not with a vehicle anyway.
right, unless everybody in front of me kept it clear,
Yeah.
and I could.
Then it's not that
So,
way.
and that
Right,
goes back to
right.
my comment that, if all of you wanted to get together and establish, the rights
Yeah, right.
and record an easement, it would make your property more marketable, for example, if you wanted to sell it. But at the same time, you could do it in such a way so that someone couldn't come in and put a 40-lot subdivision in there or something like that. It's just, easement by vehicle only.
It's between you two.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that's,
Right.
yeah.
I just
I'm
wanted to know
really-
what
I'm
it
really
was.
not
I couldn't
handing
get a
with my
straight
one.
answer. Right, okay, that's fine.
Absolutely.
It's very confusing.
So back to the matter at hand.
There you go.
Thank you for the
That's
interlude.
one of the reasons we're not doing anything to block any prescriptive rights that may or may not exist.
Yeah. Now, the road is 20 feet all around, right?
Our access road,
How big's the access road?
it's 20 feet at the entrance, that's what the
Okay.
utility requires. And then as we come in, we're 15 feet and then drop down to 12 feet as you get back beyond here.
With an 8-foot grass strip or,
It's a 12-foot wide access with at least a 2-foot shoulder on either side.
Fire chief's happy with
that's
that?
not 20
Yeah.
feet though.
No, not throughout the site, no, it's just at the entrance. We're required to do, it's actually 18 feet of gravel with 2 feet of shoulders. The utility usually
Oh,
likes to
okay.
see
You
20
said-
feet.
You said 12, I think.
I'm sorry, out
In the
back,
back
once you
is
get
12.
into the field, it goes from 15, and then once you get deep in the back, there's this long stretch where it's a long stretch, and so you're not gonna be doing any turning movements. We reduced it to 12, just to reduce the amount
Oh,
of
and
gravel.
the- and the fire chief was okay with that?
Yeah,
Oh,
he's
okay.
seen, that has
How's that
not
change?
changed since the fire chief has seen it. It was
Okay.
only just extending this, and instead of coming out, so we're going across, we've just come down and turned, so it's on our property, basically.
And all the radiuses are okay as far as the fire chief
It's the same exact geometry, correct?
Yeah, it's the same, this turning radii is actually bigger than this one.
As well as the other one up in the
Yes,
corner.
exactly. So based on the original turning analysis, we determined what the minimum inside turning radius was. I don't know it off the top of my head, but it was at one of these curves, and so I basically listed that and then made sure that I at least matched it, if not increased it. So,
Other comments or questions from the board? From folks?
It's your name, please.
Bob Dignan, Dignan. firm of Mead, M-E-A-D, Talaman, T-A-L-E-R-M-A-N,
T-A-L.
E-R-M-A-N, and Costa.
And I think they had to drive 20 years.
So if we have a question, would we be able to call you and ask you a question?
From what I-
No, you'd have to hire your own attorney.
Well, and regarding this, like, because of.
You would
No.
ask us, and we would, if necessary, refer the question to legal counsel.
See, it was the vote of 1975 that.
So as it stands, we could, because of all the discussion on, so we can put something on it, or we can't?
You can.
We can't.
Sounded that way to me, I would. They're gonna put what they want, put what you
I
want.
think
we,
that's
Right.
not,
Put a
that's not for
doghouse
us
over
to
there.
say anyway.
Can we move on
Anything
with
you want.
our
Get a dog.
business?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can't discuss that. I don't.
So-
Yeah, that's, I'm only dealing with access to this
Right,
property.
right.
I haven't researched access to your property, so I can't give you a definitive answer on what you can and can't do.
Okay.
With
Be
what
the
used
guy.
to be the street.
But I would.
But he tries.
So, any other things to raise?
I mean, I don't think so. I think, it's consistent with what was previously approved. I know that we have, you know, conservation sign off as of 2 weeks ago with a condition to come back to if there are any adjustments to the access. Again, it's the same 3-sided box culvert. So I'm confident once we give them the details, it's the same openness ratio, this still adhering to the stream crossing performance standards. So you know, I don't see that being an issue. I know we have Peter's final sign-off letter, which I believe the only outstanding thing were a couple conditions that he had suggested be included, which we're amenable to, in addition to the access issue, which I believe we've solved by moving the road. And so, you know, just, it's been such a long process, if, you know, the board feels, it appropriate, I would encourage the board to vote, and if, they see it a requirement, we could certainly get something to Peter first thing tomorrow to have him review it to get his final sign off, but, you know, again, going through all the numbers and just going, you know, not back and forth with Peter, but understanding what he's looking for, I believe this is consistent with what was previously reviewed and presented. Yeah.
Because it does have to go in front of the Conservation Commission again, and because, you do have to get your engineers okay, I kinda say wait till the next meeting. Because you know, the conservation has to see his new plans.
Is waiting essentially 3 weeks, 4 weeks, the 16th? A major issue for you.
It is. There's a lot of moving parts, and is a significant issue for the developer, because of the SMART program. Time is everything, and there's a whole lengthy discussion that would entail what those exact issues are, but the SMART program essentially can fill up, and it can delay when the project gets done, and the value of the project. So, we've many times been in front of planning boards that have made it a condition of approval that they get a final sign off from GZA if they're comfortable that there's nothing drastic that gives them any concern, considering we already had a final sign off on everything else. It's really just this area here that we're talking about that has the exact same dimensions, just moved.
Are you square with Todd, Board of Health?
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, we haven't received additional correspondence with him. I talked with him after the test pits. I showed him what we were doing. He said he liked that we're introducing the infiltration, provided all the calculations he needed. And so I'm under the understanding that he was pretty quick last time when he reviewed the plans, and I haven't received additional correspondence from him, and we're designed in accordance with the stormwater policy. And on top of that, we still need to technically go back before him for the stormwater permit. But, you know, it's, nothing is going to change in that respect, if you will, from a stormwater standpoint, compliance at least.
Yeah, you come up with a plan? stormwater management plan?
Yes.
That was submitted, right? Well, it will be when you get your permit anyway.
Yeah.
Okay.
So y'all have either met or exceeded our requirements, and exceeded some of them to a great extent. I believe that delaying the inevitable serves no purpose. I understand your position, but I think it's time for the board to.
I'm ready to vote.
Vote and move on. So would anyone like to make a motion to approve the special permit for the solar project at Brook Street with all of the conditions previously discussed?
Just I think you have to move to close the public hearing first.
Yes. Our attorney would have told us. Go on now. Sharpen up. So would anyone like to make a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, having closed the public hearing, would anyone like to make a motion to approve the Brook Street solar project, subject to all of the conditions that we have discussed during this lengthy process?
So moved.
As well as the conditional approval of GZA
Yes, and that was
And-
discussed during this lengthy process minutes ago.
and
Board of Health.
Conservation Commission and the Board of Health.
Yes.
Conservation.
Conservation and the stormwater,
No, that's already been.
no, not the stormwater,
That's
what am I
already been a
talking
condition.
about, Todd's Pillings,
Board of Health.
Well,
Board of Health.
he was for the, stormwater's another project.
I'm
Another
sorry.
subject.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Okay, so the motion's been made. Would
I will
anyone like a
second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
All right, it passes. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
So there is a process for publishing and recording all of this information, after which there is an appeal period of 20 days. 21 days.
We know, 21 days.
Have a good Christmas.
You too.
20 days, 20 days, 20 days, 20 days. Thank you as well.
Hopefully the ride back is
Yeah,
much smoother. Where do you have to go to,
You
Joe?
know?
Where you live?
So you.
Amesbury.
Wow.
Yes.
They gave us an easement for that little office square property.
Yeah, you right.
$5,000
There was
fence.
nothing.
Would've been nice if we knew ahead of time, we could told you to stay home.
Good luck.
Anyway.
Good night, remember that?
And it's gonna be up on,
So it's gonna be.
Yeah, we'll pay.
We'll get the bill.
Suck it to us.
Get it to me by tomorrow.
corner
I'll
of,
make sure that
uh,
people get these things down.
Gabral's.
So right on the minutes.
Gabral's farm.
Okay, we have, there's very little correspondence this evening.
Behind the barn.
So there are no other,
Really?
having no other business, would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Merry Christmas. Good night,
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Happy Festivus for the rest of us.